Do you feel like this benefits the people that are doing this, this past life journeys, or is it just more of a, I don't know, just a fun thing for them? Like, is it truly useful for them?
Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's just a fun thing. I will tell you, I personally like to do them ones where we do some past life healing. If there's an issue, I like to do, or we look for an issue that can be healed, that the person can let go of, a fear or a phobia or something holding them back, or even family of origin, beliefs around money. I look for things like that. That case, the person can just get a really beneficial session. Other times, people just want to do something as a fun trip. They just want to see who they were. They believe they may have been in Victorian times. They saw themselves threshing. They had dreams, want to know what they need. I personally think the second one, the example where people are just going for fun, isn't really that therapeutic. I think it's just sort of a parlor trick. But I love it when people are wanting to learn and explore self-growth through letting go of traumas from the past lives. But you bring up a really good point, Richard, and you're not the first person to ask that, because a lot of people wonder if, is this really important, or is this just a parlor trick?
Have you had an experience for someone where you were like, uh-oh, and you got to take them out of the hypnotic state or the past life regression because it's going wrong, or it's revealing something that shouldn't be revealed?
Yeah, I absolutely had that one. It was the very first, I wrote about this in one of my books. Very first past life regression I ever did, person was Jewish. And she came in, she said, I think I was killed in the concentration camps. And she wanted to know about it. So we were actually looking for that so we could heal that trauma. And this was the first time I'd done one quite that intensely. And so we get there, we go back, 1940, whatever, I think it was 1941. And she comes into the body, and she's actually wearing an SS officer uniform. And she's actually herding people onto the train. And she starts to get freaked out. She actually brings herself out of trance. And I'm trying to, hey, let's just calm and release it. We want to know what he was thinking. Why was he doing that? Maybe he was a spy, didn't get enough information. But for me, it was a good learning lesson because I got to see, okay, need to have them look at it from, as an outsider, just stand back and look at the uniform and see what it is and not necessarily jump in right away. So I added a few extra minutes to the beginning part where I talked to them about that and say, hey, if it's something that's hard to see, step back and just watch it like an observer.
Okay. Interesting. You mentioned something about clairvoyance as well. So are you, before you do a session with someone, are you trying to intuit, what's up with them, maybe that they're not saying, or where do your insights come in and come from when you're working with somebody?
So when I'm doing a psychic reading, I have permission from them to answer questions from a psychic level. But when we're doing a hypnosis reading, it's not the same thing. I'm wanting to, from a hypnosis standpoint, get clear with them of what the challenges are. A lot of times, believe it or not, you can actually hear it in people's voice when they're telling you things that aren't true. So if I'm asking someone, I'll just use the weight loss example. Why do you think you suddenly started eating a lot more food than you needed? Oh, it's because I just like chocolate. And I can hear, ask her about her husband. I bet her husband's cheating. And so I start to kind of dig a little, tell me about what's going on in your relationship. So yeah, I am getting intuitive hits there. But what I'm really listening for is how they word things. I'm listening for inflections. I'm listening for when they say, if you say a word and you're talking and everything's fine, that everything's not fine because of the way they said everything's fine, right? You have to, years of practice.
Like I've told my kids, say sorry. They're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't mean sorry.
Not sorry. Yes, that's right. That's the truth. Sorry, not sorry. Right.
Interesting. So is it necessary or useful for you to do that, in a session? Or is it just to it? Or what would be the reason?
To get the intuitive information? Is that what you're saying?
Right, yeah, to try to get this intuitive information.
I think it just comes automatically. I'm not trying to necessarily. It's actually more helpful for me to hear them explain the challenge and explain why it's a challenge. And that is a little bit of the mental, my intuition always kind of clicks in no matter what, just because that's who I am. But actually hearing the words for the hypnosis part of the session is actually more helpful. Also, the other thing I'm listening for too is I'd like to hear how people say things. So if you were to come in for a session, I want to write words and phrases down the way you say them and feed them back to you during the session, because I found over the years that if I use your words, you're more likely to receive them, take them on, and make them yours. And the process is more likely to be more effective, which is funny and also a challenge, because occasionally if I work with teenagers, I remember this, I was writing down words he was talking about video gaming, and I'm using phrases from his video games. And I realized, he told me later that I had it wrong. I was like, okay, not going to try to be so cool. I'm going to make sure I get the phrase right. I think it was I had him making friends with two characters in a video game that would never be friends in a video game. So I got schooled. So I learned that lesson.